You've now learned the basics of what compromises a network and what makes up the internet. And you saw the history of the birth of the internet, and hopefully you watched a TED talk about what is the World Wide Web and what is the hidden network. And if you wanted to, you could go through that network basics video in LinkedIn Learning, which is really great. So let's do something practical, right? So when you set up a virtual machine, if you've done it before, if you've never done it up till now, you will be asked some settings on how do you want to configure the network. And this is pretty important. So let me show you. So let's start with VMware. So this is my VMware installation on a Windows machine. This is all my virtual machines up there, but let's go into any one of them. So I'm going to take this Windows one, and I'm going to say edit the settings. And you'll see there's a thing here called network adapter. Now, obviously, you can add more adapters here. You can remove it. It won't have any internet. And you can do specific virtual network things. Now, these settings might become important in MST and in Linux, but Farai and Tom will take you through those. So let's just talk about the basics for now. So what is a bridge network? Now, a bridge network simply means that this virtual network card for this Windows 10 instance virtual machine will connect to my router or to my home network as if it is a real machine. So the data doesn't go via it still goes via my MacBook's Wi-Fi card, obviously, because this thing is fake, or my Windows machine Wi-Fi card, because obviously this virtual machine doesn't actually have a Wi-Fi card built in or any network card. But to my DNS and my DHCP server, it will look like it is a real thing. So the good thing there is that it will have a unique IP address. And this is very important when you're setting up a server. So let's say you're running a web server in a virtual machine. You want to connect to that web server from another virtual machine. If they are using NAT, which is they share the host's IP address, things are going to get confusing really quick because there's actually only one IP address now shared between three machines. And it works fine for basic things, but you want to have a server doing things, or say you're running a web server or maybe a DNS server on a virtual server. You don't maybe want NAT, you want it bridged because that will give you a real IP. The thing to remember here is that depending on your home network setup, if you have IPs dynamically allocated via your DHCP server, then it's fine. It should just work. If you ever have it locked down and you have to register a MAC address on your network before it will get an IP, like a manual IP setup, then you might have issues here. So, you need to check that your home networking equipment supports this, or you have the rights to support it or add it for yourself. I've never seen it to be a problem, but sometimes an ISP is weird and they, how many machines you have, these are the machines that's on your network, that's fine. That's the only ones we will allow to connect. It's not very common, but if you can't get things to work, look at your router, look at your switch, or look at how you connect to the internet or to your network. Then, like I said, NAT, this stands for Network Address Translation. So basically, it will have an internal IP that it will talk to the host machine with. But if I had to ping this machine, which I probably won't be able to because it'll hit my normal host machine, there's only one IP address. Then you can go host only. Now this means it won't have internet access, or it won't be visible to any other machines on the network at all. Only your host machine will be able to see this virtual machine. And then you can also specify specific virtual machines. Now you'll see here, VMnet 8 is almost always NAT, and VMware Net 1 is almost always, in most instances, host only. So sometimes documentation or a setup, or if you're using maybe Linux or something, will ask which card to bind to. If you want to use NATing, then VMware Net 8 is the one that will get you on the internet the fastest via the host IP. And you can obviously also do stuff with the LAN segment. We're not going to go into that because I haven't set up any. But you can, if you watch the full introduction to virtual machines in Module 3, there's a very good LinkedIn video that will tell you everything about how VMware works. Highly suggest you go through it, watch all of it, learn from it. All these things are explained there. Again, I'm just giving you this brief video so you're not surprised. You don't know, oh, what is this? Right, so this is how it looks in VMware, and VMware Fusion will look much the same if you're on Mac. Then if we want to look at, let me just click, remember to click on the right side. No, what did I do now? You see, there we go. This happens when you use Macs most of the time. Right, so this is VirtualBox. Now, VirtualBox is free, it's fantastic, it works really well, and it also supports various network options. It looks a bit differently. As you can see out the box, you can enable more adapters if you wanted to. We're probably going to use only one most of the time because you have to set up each one of them in your machine, and you're not going to run a server of that scale inside a VM. So default is NAT, which is network address translation again, like we learned just now, and it will then just share the IP address. Then you get bridged, which will give it a direct IP, and you can see here it picks up the wireless USB adapter that I have installed on this machine that I'm connecting to my network with. If I were using a LAN cable, I could pick that, which is the physical LAN network card. Host only, yeah, so you know what that is. It means you can only talk to this machine, can't talk to anything else. Then you get generic driver. Now this might be useful for very obscure operating systems. I've never used it before. Then you get a NAT network, which I haven't set up, but you can set that up if your network is complicated. And then they've got a new cloud network experimental, which I don't actually know what it does. I'm assuming it's some kind of netting via the cloud. And then not attached. Now, not attached is essentially there's no network card. So this is a good setting in security to have, because that machine is then basically walled off from the internet. Nothing can get to it. So yeah, so that is the difference in network settings between VirtualBox and VMware that includes VMware Workstation and VMware Fusion. And I hope you guys found it useful. And if you have any doubts, usually the one that gets you on the internet, unless you're doing a server thing, and you will get told when not to use it in MST and in Linux, is netting. Remember that.